Business Foundations for Mums, with me, Kate Butcher, is the podcast to listen to if you are a mum who is ready to launch your business, not sure where to start, or wanting to turn that sideline into something more serious. It will be full of practical tips, mindset advice, and inspirational and honest interviews with mums who are juggling business and motherhood, supporting mums in business to turn your dream into a reality. Hello, and welcome to today's episode of Business Foundations for Mums, Amanda Heritage. So, Amanda, first of all, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself a little bit, to tell us a little bit about your business, about your family, about how it all fits in together, and give us all of your background information.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thanks very much. And thanks very much for the opportunity, Kate. It's great. So, yes, so Amanda Heritage, I have a digital marketing company. My company launched in 2019. So I've just celebrated my 5th year of trading. So I did spend a year of that, or probably more than a year of that during COVID. So I've got some COVID stories, but this is a positive podcast, so we're in for positivity today. So digital marketing. So I work with clients to help them work their brands harder through digital and social solutions. So I tend to work with small companies, local companies actually, although recently I have just started working with a larger company in Cambridge, Power of Social Media, because I found them and they found me on LinkedIn. So yeah, love the business, have a background in retail marketing, so have utilized and taken, I guess, a lot of what I've learned throughout my career and moved that forward into my business. And the reason I launched my business was I did a LinkedIn sales training course actually 12 years ago. And I really loved it. And it was at the point where people really were only using LinkedIn for job searches. So it wasn't the kind of amazing networking platform it is today. And I really liked it, and I started using it more, and I started using personal Facebook more, and I just really I guess developed my own personal learning and understanding of it. And when it came to launching a business, I wanted to go down that route of digital, of which you can imagine is enhanced daily at the moment, because with AI and everything else that's happening. And in terms of me as a person, I'm a mum, which is my most important job, I have to say, much more important than running a business. I love being a mum. I'm a mum to a 17-year-old, so we're currently at A-level stages in his life, which is actually really exciting. And one of the A-levels that he's studying is business. So it's brilliant that we can now start to have those lovely conversations together about what he's learning and actually, you know, my business and what I'm doing. So yeah, no, it's brilliant. I really enjoy running a business. I love being a mum, and I love the flexibility, which I never ever had when I was in the corporate world. I loved being in the corporate world, and I loved what I did. But I was a guilty mum.
Mm-hmm.
I always felt guilty for all of my my motherhood years of I always felt really guilty with staying away overnight, not being at every sports day, not being able to turn up for every parents' evening. So and I do that now, and I love doing that. So I have an amazing mix. I have an amazing mix of doing and running a business that I'm very passionate about, but I also have that mixture of still being heavily involved in my son's education, which I love.
Fantastic. And I know a lot of mums in business talk about that mum guilt. And it sounds like to me that you've really been able to use your opportunity of having your own business to alleviate that mum guilt to some extent, that mum guilt was much more of an issue for you when you were working in the corporate world, and you didn't have the choice at that point of spending the time that you wanted with your son.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you've kind of summarized it really well. And I kind of almost have some regrets, and I don't look at my son and think that he suffered in any way.
Mm.
I think I'm the one who feels guilty
Mhm.
for not being there. And that's not to say that the infrastructure and the support network that we had was amazing, was absolutely amazing. So I knew when I was having to stay away overnight, or when I was flying off somewhere lovely, I knew that actually he was being looked after really well, but I wasn't there, and I wanted to be there. So yes, I have that lifestyle now that enables me, and I suppose also he, you know, being 17, he's not going to be in our lives. You know, whether he goes off to university, he's actually taking a year out next year, and what he then decides to do there afterwards. So I suppose it's, for me, you need to maximize those younger days, but I also feel like you need to maximize now, this age, because it's of an age where he spends more time away from us with his friends, but also at some point he will not live with us. So yeah, I'm making the most of being around him, definitely.
Absolutely. Fantastic. And your business most definitely gives you that chance to do that, which is fabulous.
Definitely.
Yeah. The other thing that you said there when you were introducing your business, which really interested me, was that you've recently got a new client who are based further afield, which you did through LinkedIn. And it sounds to me like LinkedIn, is that your speciality in terms of the digital marketing that you do? Is LinkedIn your preferred method of digital marketing?
Do you know, I tend to use LinkedIn. I train and write strategic plans for clients on all of their social platforms. And really it's about understanding where their target audience is, and therefore making sure that they're really present on those platforms. So I do tend to probably spend more time on LinkedIn, although I do obviously support clients with Instagram and Facebook as well. But LinkedIn as a platform has evolved immensely, and it's changed
Mm.
quite a lot. So pre-COVID, it was very much a business focused platform that you would only talk about business.
Mm.
And if you dare mentioned anything private there, gosh, you got
Yes.
shot down immediately.
This is not
And people
Facebook.
Exactly, that's exactly what I
Yeah.
was about to say. People
Yeah.
would often say, you know, get back to Facebook.
Yeah.
And that changed because I think during COVID, people used it as a platform to almost be quite honest about how they were feeling, be honest about what they were going through, and also people became more engaged on it, and that never went away. And I think that's really nice. And I think there's a really nice mixture of business networking and personal networking, which actually is really important to me as a business owner anyway, because I think it's really important to get to know people before you work with them anyway, because sometimes it doesn't work,
Mhm.
sometimes you don't have the right cultural fit.
Yeah.
So LinkedIn is a fantastic networking tool.
Wonderful. And again, I mean, just I think proof there as well. You talked about having how you had engaged with a client on LinkedIn and then started to work with them as a client. But fantastic testament to what you do, that you bring in your own business through exactly the methods that you're using for your clients, which is fantastic, isn't it?
Thank you. Yeah, no, it absolutely is. And I think if you know, I need to be able to evidence that what I'm selling to my clients works for me, because I'm in the same position as a lot of those clients. You know, I'm a
Mm.
small business, and if I can take exactly what I'm doing in terms of my marketing and apply that to my clients, then they've got some real case studies about how it's working. So it's really important for me to maintain that presence on social media.
Absolutely. That's fantastic. And in terms of actually starting your business then, Amanda, 5 years ago, you made that leap. You left the corporate world and you decided to set up your own digital marketing company, which in itself must have been quite a scary move to make. But was there a particular trigger? I mean, you've mentioned about the balance that you now get. Was that the main reason for you, or was there a reason that you decided you wanted to set up your own business? Was it a burning desire that you'd already always had to do that, or what was the reason for it?
There was a burning desire. You're absolutely right there, but I wasn't brave enough, if I'm honest. For a couple of years, I'd thought about doing it, and I wasn't quite ready to give up my, you know, corporate salary, and just really go for it. And something changed personally in our lives. And my partner's mum sadly passed away, and she was kind of one of the largest supports around us for childcare. And the last kind of corporate role I had, I was working for a marketing agency based in Bristol. So I live in Buckinghamshire, they're in Bristol. So I used to only go into the office, to be fair, once a week, but I had a team that were based in Leeds. I had a team that were based in Bradford. I had clients that were in Doncaster. And if I wasn't traveling to Bristol, I was traveling, and we needed that support network around us to help us with our son. And that changed quite, my partner's mum became very ill, first of all, and then I had a short period of illness before she passed away. And two things happened, actually, being completely transparent. I decided that maybe it was a time to come and work closer to home. So I moved into an organization which I didn't really enjoy the job. I didn't enjoy the job at all. And I'd spent a lot of my career in long periods of time. So I'd worked for a marketing agency for 13 years. I'd then worked for another one for 5 years. I then went to work for a local company, and I didn't enjoy it for a number of reasons. And I hung in there for a year because I felt like I should do that, because actually I kind of didn't have the strength to leave after 6 months, purely because I'd spent so much of my time in kind of long-term careers. And it fell into the right timing for me to then think, well, actually, I don't really enjoy what I'm doing. I wasn't really doing the job that I had been recruited for. And therefore, is this now the right time to go down the routes? Because we didn't have the network of our childcare. And also, I suppose I'd got into a job that I really didn't want to be involved in. And it felt like this was a positive thing to do for me. And it felt like it was the right time to do it. And that's it. And then I literally made a decision within a month. And I thought, do you know what? I wanted to do this for a long time. Somebody somewhere is telling me this is the right time to do it. Do it. And I did it.
Fantastic. And I'm sorry to hear that it was a loss in the family that was part of the trigger for that. But also, it sounds like there was a real element of lack of job satisfaction there as well. And knowing that you could do this for yourself was obviously a real
Yeah.
driving force, something that you had, as you say, you'd wanted to do, a burning desire to do that, which is wonderful.
Absolutely. And I can honestly say, in the last 5 years, I have never, ever once looked back and thought, I wish I hadn't have done this. Times aren't always easy necessarily, because you worry about the next client that might not be coming in. But actually, the environment that I work in, the people that I'm surrounded by, and what I'm doing, it is such a positive thing that I never looked back to think, should I be going back into the corporate world? I made it happen because I desperately wanted it to happen so much. I made the business a success, so that I could do it for my family and for me, which I absolutely love.
Gosh. Well, I mean, from my point of view, I've seen you around on social media for the last few years. You've been popping up all over the place. So you certainly have been doing a good job of marketing your business. You're definitely a name and a business that I was very familiar with. But we only actually met first time, and you talked about the positive network of people that are around you that you really love. And we met at a networking meeting quite recently, which is one of the things that I love about being in business, is all the exciting and interesting and different people that you do get to meet when you go to networking meetings, and when you go on training, and you can choose which meetings you enjoy and which ones you go back to. And I mean, I love networking, and networking is something that I've loved for years. But yeah, you pick, there's some networking meetings I've been to that I just really don't enjoy. I don't enjoy the format, and I don't necessarily find that I click with anyone. And then there's other networking meetings that you go to and you think, oh, this is fantastic. There's all these amazing, inspiring people here, and they're all running their own businesses. And they're all doing it, and they're all pretty normal people. I remember before I'd started my own business, I remember thinking, yeah, gosh, that's something that's sort of really highbrow and, really quite difficult to do. And but once you do it, you realize that everyone else is in the same boat and everyone's there to support each other, which I think is
absolutely. And and it was one of the pieces of advice that someone gave me when I first started the business. And they said to me, go out networking. And I'd never done networking, because when you work in, a corporate role, I have my clients to manage, and I have my clients to work with, and I never went to a networking meeting. And I probably did exactly what you just described. I tried a few,
Mm,
and some of them immediately I eliminated because they just weren't me.
mm,
But others, actually, I really liked. And there were membership ones, and I joined a great membership one, and it was amazing for my business for the first 3 to 4 years. But the other thing that was really important for me about networking was friendships, because I'd never worked locally. I'd never worked in Buckinghamshire. I'd worked for, corporate organisations and agencies that were out of the area, so I never really knew anybody. And
mm,
even if I suppose I went to those meetings, those networking meetings, and still do really, with a vision of, if I'm not necessarily here to sign a piece of business, I'm here actually to form a network of people that I can either utilize within my business, or actually those people can just become my business friends, because we don't all have groups of people around us when we're working.
mm.
So I think for me, networking is so key when you run your own business, really key. And as you say, I still do it today, and as you do, Kate, because I think it's really important.
Mm. Yeah, and I totally agree with everything you've said there about networking. I've made a number of friends through networking who are people I now class as, good friends of mine.
Yeah,
And I would never have met them if I hadn't been networking. But yeah, it is that network of, it's a support network, isn't it? Within
yeah,
business, it is. You
yeah,
talked earlier about having a support network at home in terms of the childcare and people who can be around and make sure when you were in the corporate world that you had that support you needed to be able to do that. But networking is absolutely that support
yeah,
network within the business world, really, isn't it? And it's
yeah.
it's a
I
really
also think it's
fabulous
good
thing.
for, I mean, a real life example. So my partner has his own business, and I don't do Google Ads at all, because I think you have to be really specialized in it. But I met somebody at a networking group, and I had a couple of conversations with him. I then went and grabbed a one-to-one with him afterwards, and we had coffee. Somebody then asked me a week later if I could support them with some Google Ads, and I said, I don't, but I know somebody who can. As I sit here now,
Mm.
my partner is currently meeting that person to talk about Google Ads for his business as well. And I
There we
think
go.
that's the key thing as well, that, and I'm a big believer in getting to know people before I recommend them, because especially for my own clients, but to be able to utilize the skills of the people that you meet in networking groups, you'll never find anything. It's a bit like your own, yellow pages, as it was
Mm,
years ago. It literally, they are there, and all
mm,
you need to do is get to know those people, and you can utilize them. And that's, that's really important.
absolutely. No, I totally agree with that as well. My previous iteration of my business was as a virtual assistant, and I think I gained every single client that I had during the time that I was doing that work was either somebody I met at networking, or it was somebody who was recommended by somebody I had met at
Mm,
networking. The entire
mm.
business grew to full capacity based on networking.
That's
And
amazing. That's brilliant.
I think networking, like you say, it's about growing those relationships. It's not just about the necessarily getting out there and getting the business, like you
Yeah.
say. It is about growing those relationships.
Yeah,
That's a
absolutely. And
big part
also,
of it.
it's quite lonely sometimes, isn't it? So even if nothing else, it's a nice social occasion.
Mm.
So I think people should look at it like that as well. So there's a number of benefits to networking.
Definitely. Absolutely. Thank you. And you already mentioned that you said that was a piece of advice that you were given when you
Mm.
started. Would you say that was the best bit of advice that you were given when you started your business, or is there a particular piece of advice that anyone has given you that's really stuck with you?
Definitely that stuck with me. I would say that, and that still does, and I'm sure that will never go away. But the other piece of advice I remember somebody sharing with me was to try and maximize the fact that you're running your own business. And by that I mean, don't arrive in your office at 7 in the morning and not leave it until 9 o'clock at night because you're so busy. And you need to maximize the fact that you are in control of what goes on in your diary. And I never did that to start with, and I always felt a little bit guilty, because if I wanted to go to the hairdressers to get a haircut, I would always do it on a Saturday, because that's what I've always done, because I was working. And it takes a little bit of time to become accustomed to it, but it's a real benefit, isn't it? And
Mm.
I work late nights if I need to, I work weekends if I need to. And having that flexibility in your diary to make sure that you do things for you as well, because that's really important, because I think we can get very absorbed in busy life, that actually sometimes you need to sit back and think, hold on, this is my business here. If I want to take time out and go out for a walk, or I want to take time out and do something for me, build that time in, because it's really important. And well-being is something that I've really focused on quite a lot in the last 12 months. And actually that's really key for me as a business owner, to look after yourself, because there is no one else looking after you apart from your family, but they're not necessarily in your office with you all day, every day.
That's a really good piece of advice, and I think one I probably need to take a little bit more heed of as well. You're quite right. I think, you said it at the beginning. A big part of the reason for starting your own business was to have that flexibility. And what's the point of doing it if you don't take
Mm,
advantage of the flexibility? Definitely. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
absolutely. You're quite right on that. And I am very guilty of I come home from the school run and I start work and I
Yep.
carry on until I have to pick the children up from school. Um, and yeah, like you, there are times when I'll certainly work through weekends, and there's times when I'll do some work in the evenings, or I get up early and do a bit of work. I fit it in wherever, but actually,
Mm.
yeah, there definitely are more opportunities. You mentioned the hairdresser's appointment. I've actually got a voucher for a hairdresser's appointment that I need to book, and I kept thinking, gosh, when am I going to fit that in? I'm working all the time. I think I'm going to book it in during a day when I
Yep.
would otherwise be working. I think that's a really
Absolutely.
good advice.
Good. I'm pleased to hear that. I think that's really important. And just think how good you'll feel when you walk away from that hairdresser's appointment.
Absolutely. No, I'm definitely going to do that. Thank you very much. And do you have a favorite business tool that you use?
So it's really interesting, actually, because I one of the things, if I put my social media head on, and not just digital marketing, but just put my social media head on, one of the things that clients always say to me is, I don't have enough time. I just don't have enough time. And social media always drops to the bottom of the pile because there's other things that are more important, or they see them as being more important. And the thing I would say is, learn how to use a scheduling tool with social media, because yes, you shouldn't always schedule a month in advance, because there are things that will be coming up, but you can save yourself so much time if you actually sit there one afternoon for a couple of hours and schedule content for the next
Mm,
couple of weeks. And I think it's really important to do that. And there are a number of them. And I think it all depends on your budget. It all depends. If you want to use free, there's free scheduling tools. You can sit on your phone these days and schedule your content on Facebook. You literally don't have to be in front of a laptop. So I would say, if you don't schedule content in advance, you'll be amazed how much time that will save you. When you start doing it, you'll think, why have I never done this before?
absolutely. And I think, like you say, the free tools there are so amazing now as
Yeah,
well, aren't they? And Meta gives you the opportunity to schedule to Facebook and
exactly.
Instagram at the same time, and then to tweak your content so you
Yeah,
can potentially have the same content going out, but tweaked for Facebook, tweaked for Instagram, scheduled for different times, even though it's the same. It's really, it gets really quite clever when you
yeah,
start to look into it.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's how, on a personal level, I work my diary. So I know, for example, that I need to be out of the house early tomorrow for a meeting. So I will make sure that content is on my profiles either a couple of days before or the day before. Just because I'm busy, my social media platforms shouldn't be penalized because of that, because I should be planning that in advance. So yeah, definitely get behind that. It's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think equally as well, I mean, a lot of people, I've heard a lot of people complaining that you can't schedule onto every platform on any particular scheduler, certainly on the free ones. But actually, it's really easy if you've written your
Mm,
content out, pop it
yeah,
on Meta and it goes onto Instagram and Facebook, and then you copy and paste it, and then you upload it onto, I don't know, Buffer to go onto your LinkedIn or whatever it might be. There are ways to do that quite easily that really don't take very much time at all.
yeah. And I think once you get, it's habits, isn't it? And
Mm.
I know when I train people on social media, I always talk to them about habits. And I think once we get into a habit, whatever it is in our life, once we get into a habit of doing something, it just becomes natural to us and we don't think about it.
Mm.
It's automatic, and we do it and we move on to the next task.
Yeah.
So it's just changing habits sometimes.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you for that tip because, yeah, that's definitely one I think most business owners, if they're not already doing it, should definitely be
Yeah,
looking at scheduling. You're quite right on that one. Thank you.
yeah.
Do you have as well a favorite business book recommendation that you have for other mums in business that you think they might benefit from?
I read a lot of books, actually. I read a lot of business books, and I read a lot of books about, looking after yourself in your business as well. But I always go back to the same one. And in 2020, my son and I were watching the TV, and we watched a program called The Secret Teacher. And I don't know whether you've ever watched it. And on it appeared this person that I'd never seen before. And he basically went undercover into a school. And then at the end of the program, he actually gave one of the children the opportunity to join his business for a small period of time to get some experience. And that was Stephen Bartlett. And I didn't
Uh,
even know who Stephen Bartlett was at the time.
yeah.
And then the starts, and then Stephen Bartlett then became the Diary of a CEO, and he then launched this book, Happy Sexy Millionaire. He then obviously then became a dragon. And I really like him as a person. I really like his ethos. I really like his background. And that was the first time that I guess I'd understood where he'd come from. And the fact that, because he left school with absolutely no qualifications, but he then put his head down, focused, and now is extremely successful. And I like reading his books, and he's written a couple of books now. I like listening to his podcasts as well, because they're just, I suppose I like the real life scenario behind the books. Sometimes I find some business books are a bit too corporate-y.
Mhm.
Um, I don't find that with him. I like reading about people who have worked hard, developed and grown something into a success through their focus and their hard work.
Mm.
And I like him. So I would say if anybody's not read him, I mean, I'm sure everyone's now heard of him, but if anyone's not read that book, that's a great book to read. And I always watch his podcasts as well. I always watch everything to do with him, because I just really like him as a person and value his ethos and the way he does business.
Fantastic. Thank you. And can you give us the name of the book again?
Yeah, sure. This one is Happy Sexy Millionaire. And the reason it's called Happy Sexy Millionaire is because he wrote that down as his vision. I think he wrote down this objective, or this goal that he wanted to be. It's a strange title, isn't it? But he wanted to be a happy, sexy millionaire by the time he was X. And actually he'd exceeded that by the time I think it was by the time he was 19 or 21. And then he'd exceeded that because he worked hard and developed his business Social Chain.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's quite exceptional. I didn't realize he was a millionaire by the time he was 19.
yeah, I think it's 19.
That's
Does it say? Oh, I'm sorry. That's my mistake. 25. By the time he was
25.
25.
Gosh,
But
25
yeah,
though. Even still, that's incredible, isn't it? And I haven't read his books. I've listened to a couple of his podcasts. I don't listen to it as regularly as I probably should. It is on my list of regular podcasts to listen to. But yeah, he's just a really personable,
yeah,
relatable,
yeah,
nice young man, isn't he? He just
yeah,
comes
he
across
is.
so well, and I think he's such a good role model for young people. He really is.
Yeah, I do. I think he is. I mean, he left school with no qualifications, and that's not to say that, that, but for me, that didn't stop him, because that could have stopped him, couldn't it? He could
Mm.
have gone down a track of a very different route in his life, and he didn't. He worked hard, and therefore has become the person he is today. And the other person who doesn't have a book, but the other person I really like as well, is the owner of Gymshark, because he's exactly the same. He's exactly the same ethos and works really hard, young, ambitious,
Mm.
but both really running amazing companies. And I was really chuffed once, because I commented on a post of Stephen Bartlett's on LinkedIn, and he liked it. And as I know,
Fantastic.
that might have been someone doing his social media for him, but I took a screenshot. I was really pleased, and I kept it. I kept it, and I'll keep it forever.
Fantastic. I remember I know that feeling. I used to
Yeah.
have a hospitality consultancy, and Fred Siriex once commented on one of our tweets on our hospitality consultancy, which it was that same sort of euphoric feeling that somebody from who's a really big name in the industry
I
has really
know,
liked
it's
what we put
amazing,
out
isn't
on
it?
social
Yeah.
media. But yeah, like
that's
you say,
brilliant.
you don't know whether they're doing it themselves. We'd like to think so, wouldn't we?
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
it would be nice to.
I'm going to think he was.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Fantastic. That's brilliant. So before we start to wind things up, Amanda, could you just give us a little bit more information about where people can find you? If they want to find out more about you and your business, where on the socials or on a website can people come and find you?
Thank you, Kate. Yeah, of course. So my business name is Amanda Heritage Digital Solutions. As you probably would have gathered, it didn't take that long to think about that when I when I launched my business. And I'm on LinkedIn, under actually, that's a slight lie. I have a personal page on LinkedIn, and I only have a personal page because I firmly believe that a personal page follows you wherever you go. That's not to say that I'm going to move away from running my business, but it's important to me just to maintain a personal page, not necessarily to maintain a business page. So personally, Amanda Heritage, and then on Facebook and on Instagram and X, Amanda Heritage Digital Solutions. And then my website is Amanda Heritage Digital Solutions as well. So pretty easy to remember. But I'm on social media all the time, as you would have said, Kate, in the beginning. So I mean, locally, I share quite a lot of my content into local business groups. So hopefully local people may have heard of me, and more than happy, as I say, to have conversations with people about what they're trying to do with their digital marketing and social media.
Absolutely. And if they can't find you on social media, they can probably find you at some local networking as well.
Exactly, absolutely. So I don't tend to do huge amounts, but I do a couple of them I'm quite loyal to. So yeah, definitely.
I'm the same. I found a couple that I really like, and I go along regularly to those. So I think that's a great way of building those relationships, as we were talking about, wasn't it? So
yeah, I think so.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much for your time today. It's been really lovely to speak to you and have a proper conversation. I think this is the longest conversation we've had. So it's really nice to actually have a proper conversation, and to hear a bit more about your business and what's inspired you to have your business. And thank you for sharing that with us today.
Oh, thank you. And thanks, Kate. It's been great to get to know you a little bit better as well.
Thank you for joining us here at Business Foundations for Mums. You can find all of our episodes, show notes and blog posts at businessfoundationsformums.co.uk, and you can follow us on Instagram or Facebook.